Hello and welcome to another edition of 10 Count. For UCN Live, I'm Michael Montero, joined at Hollywood Spoke by Mr. Doug Fischer of Ring TV and Mr. Ken Miller of The Sentinel.
The institution.
The institution, that's right, the institution, my bad. It's my first day.
That's right.
All right, guys, let's talk PBC, all right? Danny Garcia barely squeaks by Lamont Peterson with a majority decision. Some people are saying that this fight was a robbery. The punch stats indicate that it was a close fight. Danny Garcia landed 173 of 589 total punches. Peterson, more economical, more accurate, 170 for 494. How did you guys score this fight?
I agreed with the 115, 113 for Danny Garcia. I would have had no problem with it being a draw. I would have had no problem whatsoever with Lamont Peterson winning 115, 113. Even maybe 116, 112. I only gave Peterson one round in the first 7 rounds, and that was the second. There were a lot of rounds I almost gave to Peterson. But the thing is, as effective as that lateral movement was, because he made Danny Garcia load up and miss, made Garcia look quite average, really. I mean, this fight really sort of solidified the fact that Garcia is a guy who's at his best when somebody's being aggressive and taking the fight to him. When he's got to go out and get it, he's not somebody who is adept at cutting off the ring, and he missed pitifully at times. Yeah. However, Peterson didn't make him pay enough in my mind. The jab that he was putting out there was often falling short of the mark, and although he could land his right hand when he let it go, he only popped it like 2 or 3 times around. And I had to give it to the guy who was staking out the center of the ring, loading up with big punches, not always landing cleaning. I mean, a lot of times those body shots were landing on arms for Peterson, but it would back Peterson off. Peterson really created in that first half of the fight, he really sort of created this aura that Danny Garcia was in more charge than perhaps he was.
I thought that Peterson won the fight. I don't believe in this notion that just because someone is the brand name fighter that all of a sudden this guy has to win every 2 or 3 rounds to be credited for 1 round. And I thought that Peterson fought a fantastic fight. I'll be honest with you, if I'm Al Haymon and if I'm really the Al Haymon investors, I'm concerned here because I don't know what it is that I really have in Danny Garcia, who's supposed to be my signature guy. Everyone knew that Lamont Peterson was a B fighter. But against Danny Garcia, he looked like an A fighter. And if this is the best it is that you have, I'm really, really concerned about what you're going to do with Danny Garcia because I don't know if Danny Garcia is a star. I don't know if Danny Garcia is really, truly an A-level fighter because the blueprint for everybody who can potentially fight him next, even Adrian Broner's not going to do anything any different than what Lamont Peterson did, and it will probably be more effective, and I think that Danny Garcia will eventually lose. But if I'm Al Haymon, I'm really, really concerned that I don't have the star that I thought that I had, and I'm really overpaying for something that I really overvalue.
Right. One thing I was surprised by is that, Garcia is planning to move up to welterweight. This was a catch weight of, I think, 143 pounds. And he looks smaller than Peterson. It looked like a welterweight against a lightweight in there. How is this guy going to fare against the better welterweights?
He's in a catch-22. He wants to go to welterweight because he believes he's going to feel stronger fighting at 147 pounds. But he also knows that's where the big fights are and that's where the big money is. Potentially, if his dreams come true, like it has for other guys who have moved up to welterweight, like Robert Guerrero, maybe he gets that lottery ticket against a Floyd Mayweather, maybe even a Manny Pacquiao or whatever. But even without the superstars Mayweather and Pacquiao, just within the PBC universe, there are some marquee matchups that can be made at welterweight with Danny Garcia against the likes of Keith Thurman, against Sean Porter. Broner, if Broner wants to step back up to 147 pounds. Andre Berto, Marcos Maidana. So there's a lot of attractive matchups that can be made at welterweight. But I agree with you. He looked like the smaller man. And I think Lamont Peterson, who is a little bit taller and definitely rangier, he put on more weight. He was actually the heavier man. And when Peterson decided to plant his feet and come forward and put forth a little bit of aggression, I thought he manhandled Garcia a little bit. And those are the rounds that I had no problem scoring for Peterson. I thought really starting with round 8, Peterson took firm command of this fight, which made me think, man, you needed a mid-round surge, not a late rounds rally. But as to Garcia's future, he might be stuck in this limbo where making 140 pounds makes him feel weak, and he doesn't feel he has the strength and the energy to go out there and beat the best at 140 pounds. But then fighting legitimately at welterweight, I see him getting hurt against guys like Keith Thurman, Sean Porter. If the PBC ever allowed somebody like unbeaten IBF title holder Kell Brook to come over from the UK and fight one of their guys, I see
that'd be ugly.
Kell Brook is a natural welterweight. Right. He ain't coming up in weight. He is a natural 140.
Danny Garcia couldn't beat Devin Alexander at welterweight. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, well, you know what?
We're having this long-winded conversation about a guy that when we air, no one's even going to be thinking about. I mean, I love the fact that we're having a conversation just because the fight just happened. But Danny Garcia is not what anyone thinks he is.
Even at 140, if he can go back down to junior welterweight.
140, anybody that thinks about Danny Garcia, if you're thinking about watching him, you think about his dad because his dad is such a nut. Danny Garcia is not what everyone thinks that he is. Now that the ducks are no longer quacking and he's got to get into the water in the pond with someone who will fight him back, now you see that you just don't have a star.
And you gotta wonder, how often is he gonna have a close fight where he gets the benefit of the doubt?
Yes,
we saw it with Mauricio Herrera. We've seen it again with Lamont Peterson. How often is he gonna be considered the A side going in? Because he was definitely the A side against Herrera. He was definitely the house fighter going against Peterson. Going forward, is he going to be the house fighter against a Thurman?
No way.
Porter?
I was just going to say, against Thurman, he's not the A side.
Bro, I guarantee you that anybody who we're in the sport of boxing, we obviously know what an A and B side is. Somebody's just walking into their living room and turned on NBC and watched that fight. They don't know what an A or a B side is.
That's true.
And as far as they're concerned, it looks like Lamont Peterson might be the A guy. So for Al Heyman, who's introducing the sport of boxing, reintroduced the sport of boxing to the unconventional boxing fan, you got a problem. You have a real problem because you don't really have the stars that you think that you have. And for Golden Boy and Top Rank and any other promotional company that didn't overpay for what Al Heyman ended up locking up, you hit the lotto without even buying a ticket.
Well, you know, talking about stars with problems, let's talk about Peter Quillin. Because in the co-feature, Peter Quillin and Andy Lee fought to a draw. Andy Lee maintains or retains his middleweight title, which he would have retained anyway because Quillin missed weight. Now they fight to a draw. Where does each fighter go from here? Lee has the mandatory against Billy Joe Saunders, and then he might be in the Triple G sweepstakes at HBO later this year. That's a 7-figure payday. But Peter Quillin, where does he go from here?
He might sort of be in that limbo that Danny Garcia is in terms of his marketability. I mean, we just called him sort of the star or the A side, but he's never headlined, you know, a major event. He's not really a ticket seller. He is somebody with a quirky personality. He interviews well. He's not an uninteresting fighter, but he's also not special. I think those 12 rounds, and I was fine with the draw.
It was a waste of time.
Yeah. It just lets you know that the middleweight division is very shallow. And these guys are top 10 contenders in this era. But when you match them up in your head with a truly elite middleweight like a Gennady Golovkin, you know they don't stand a chance. I mean, there's the difference, the disparity in talent and technique and ring ability. It's sad.
The problem that we have is that we're always making these matchups in our head. We're always comparing something now to something yesterday.
I like doing that.
That's part of the fun of being a boxing fan.
I mean, essentially you're just mind doing yourself. You're mind screwing yourself because that's not what we have here. What we have here is a Peter Quillin and an Andy Lee, and for Marv Albert to say how exciting that fight was, I wanted to go and flip his toupee for him. I mean, I have no idea what fight he was watching when he said that. I mean, it's like me and the Rodney King videotape. Excuse me, I don't think he got hit with the billy club. You're telling me I didn't see something that I saw? So what Marv Albert was saying was that this was a great fight. The reality of it is Peter Quillin and Andy Lee was a waste of time. And after some really nice jump starts for Al Haymon, I think he didn't get out of the starting blocks with this card. And you mentioned Marv Albert. I gotta say, the PBC commentating crew right now needs to be changed out. I think that they're really muted. There's not a lot of energy there. Talk about problems with PBC. That's one of them for me. Another thing, another quick note, that second knockdown, I think it was in the third round where Quillin put down Lee. He was stepping on his foot. That should have been ruled a trip. Can we not get instant replay in boxing? We have the technology, we have the time, we got 60 seconds between rounds. Let's do it. But that's going to be it for this episode of 10 Count. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you next time.